Hello fellow mutants, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about which Justice League team was better. The Snyderverse or the Arrowverse. Now, to be fair, I would have to say the Snyderverse, or the DCEU as they call it, because we actually seen them in action, together. Whereas the Arrowverse's Justice League, we never seen them really fight together in terms of the formation of the Justice League. So, to be fair, I would go with the Snyderverse Justice League, but I'm also interested to see what this article would say. So let's give this a read. The Justice League is a DC's premier team, and both the Arrowverse and the old DCEU had their own versions of the iconic superhero squad. And but one of them might have been better than the other. The Arrowverse started all the way back in the 2012 with Stephen Amell's Arrow. Oliver Queen would remain the touchstone of the Arrowverse for several years, with Arrow giving way to multiple spin-offs that helped the Arrowverse to become DC's best handled live-action universe. Recently, the Arrowverse ended with the Flash series finale, as the other shows for their either finished their runs, been cancelled, or retconned out of the Arrowverse, in the case of Superman and Lois. Before ending, the Arrowverse managed to set up its version of the Justice League. The iteration of DC Premier team-up came after the cinematic side had already assembled its premier squad. The DCU Justice League came to be formed in a very different way from the Arrowverse take on the team, which was likely due to each version of the JLA taking place at a different time, different medium, television, and theaters. The DCEU will soon be reset in favor of James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC Universe, which will likely form a brand new Justice League on its own. So the Arrowverse Justice League team and setup explained. And I also realized I didn't do continuing, so BRB. Okay. Arrow started at the DCTV shared universe in 2012, with the Arrowverse going on to include 6 series: Arrow, Flash, The Flash, Supergirl, DC Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and Batwoman, and several crossovers events and smaller scale team-ups episodes. As the Arrowverse only grew in size and importance, so did its crossover events. In 2019 through 2020, the Arrowverse would bring to life its most ambiguous crossover. The Crisis on Infinite Earths, that crossover event fully used the potential of the multiverse to not only bring together the Arrowverse's heroes, but also several characters from all over DC's history, such as Tom Welling as Brendan Wells, Clark Kent from Smallville, and Superman Returns, respectively. After Oliver Queen sacrificed himself to save billions, later becoming a Spectre and saving the entire multiverse, the Arrowverse entered what was supposed to be a new era for the shared DC TV. At the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry Allen gathers some of Arrowverse's heroes in what Black Lightning says is a condemned building, but would later turn out to be the Arrowverse's version of the Justice League iconic Hall of Justice. There, the present Arrowverse heroes have a small service for Oliver, with the Flash then explaining the reason why he called those exact heroes at that place. Barry then reveals that the building is actually an off-grade Star Labs facility that he thinks is the perfect place for the heroes to use whenever they need to gather to save the world in the future. Barry then takes off the cloth covering around table with a star in the middle. Each member of the Arrowverse Justice League gets a chair with their hero symbol. There are 8 chairs, with one of them being in Oliver's memory. The Arrowverse Justice League includes The Flash, which was played by Grant Gustin, Supergirl, Superman, Martian Manhunter, the Kate Kane version of Batwoman, White Canary, and Black Lightning. The DCEUs. And I gotta say, before I go into the DCEU Justice League team and setup, or the Snyderverse as I call it, I have to say that I think that the Arrowverse Justice League had potential. Sadly, they didn't use it, and I've heard that the Justice League was going to be used in Season 9 of The Flash, or Season 10 of The Flash, if there was going to be a Season 10. But I think the Arrowverse Justice League had a potential. I would have loved to have seen the Arrowverse's take on the Justice League. Anyways, let's get into the Snyderverse Justice League team. The DCEU's Justice League came together quite differently from the Arrowverse iteration of the team. While the Arrowverse developed its heroes over several years before creating its Justice League, the DCEU did the opposite, bringing its team together very fast, with most of the members of Superhero Squad not getting their own projects before banding together to defeat Steppenwolf in 2017's Justice League. Ben Affleck's Batman assembled the Justice League alongside Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and after Steppenwolf invaded Earth with the army of parademons. The DCU already established its trinity: Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, in the ill-received Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. The film also set up other members of the DCU Justice League, with Diana receiving an email with surveillance footage on a few different metahumans. Besides Wonder Woman, the files belong to Ezra Miller's The Flash, Ray Fisher's Cyborg, and Jason Momoa's Aquaman. The team came together in Justice League and managed to resurrect Henry Cavill's Superman. They went on to defeat Steppenwolf and save the Earth. So, which Justice League team has stronger heroes? Well, you would think, because the Arrowverse had 2 Kryptonians, the Arrowverse, but that also doesn't mean that that doesn't really mean much. So, let's read. Both Justice League teams have heavy hitters, with some DC most iconic heroes being present on each side. To compare the 2 versions of the Justice League, there are a few factors that must be taken into account. Both Justice League shares a couple of characters. Tyler Hoagland's and Cavill's play Superman, while Grant Gustin and Miller plays The Flash. Those versions of the characters are not the exact same in strength, though, with Cavill's Clark Kent probably stronger than the Arrowverse Superman, with Gustin's The Flash is more powerful and experienced than Miller's Barry Allen. Both teams have different numbers of heroes on their roster. The DCU has 5 members, to the Arrowverse's 7. Supergirl did manage to beat the Arrowverse Superman, but she is likely still be a step below the DCU's Wonder Woman. Maybe not in raw power, but in fighting skill. The Snyderverse Justice League has Affleck as Batman, whose warehouse scene is Batman vs. Superman's Dawn of Justice, as well as beating Superman, makes for a huge advantage over the Arrowverse Justice League. If the first CW version of the iconic DC team had a male Green Arrow as an active member, then maybe the situation could have been more of a mashup. Well, also, he was a Spectre, so maybe, if they had, the Snyderverse Justice League came into the Arrowverse and they interrupted the multiverse, then Stephen Mills, Oliver Queen could have came in, and you could play it that way because I'm only playing by the Arrowverse's rules. Go watch the last season of Flash for what I'm referencing. Anyways, as it stands, Affleck's Batman could easily take on Katie Lott's White Canary and Ruby Rose's Batwoman. Then Fisher's Cyborg would likely have no issue besting Chris Williams' Black Lightning, as the technology hero could redirect the Arrowverse's Justice League Lightning to become even more powerful. Finally, the Arrowverse Justice League did feature a core member of the DCEU did not, the Martian Manhunter. The character is one of the most powerful of DC lore, and it is possible that he could best Momoa's Aquaman in an all-out fight. However, that would be a close call, with either side having good advantage of coming out on top. So, which Justice League team was ultimately better? Blah, blah, blah. Which Justice League team was ultimately better? There we go. All in all, the DCU's the Snyderverse, as I've been calling it, Justice League ended up being the better one. Not only was it the most powerful version of the Justice League, but the characters actually got to assemble and operate as a team. The Arrowverse Justice League would have been part of the Flash Season 10, but as the speedster series ended with Season 9 instead, the team never got a chance to get together after the Crisis on Infinite Earths tease. Which is what I was saying towards the beginning. That said, each iteration of the iconic DC team definitely has its own strengths and weaknesses. While the DCU's Justice League ends up as the best version of the two, the Arrowverse version of the team handled the development of the characters and the team getting together in a better way. Maybe the upcoming DC universe can create an ideal version of the Justice League in the near future. And so, essentially, this is saying what I was saying earlier, how because we didn't really get to see the Arrowverse's Justice League in action, the Snyderverse has the better Justice League. And to be fair, that's a fair estimate to go on. If show me that we get if we could get an Arrowverse's Justice League game, that'd be cool to see. But unless that happens, or we get a limited series of the Arrowverse's Justice League, we would never know who would literally be the better Justice League. We would never know between the Snyderverse and the Arrowverse, but hopefully that can be answered one day, because I would like to know. But until then, what do you beautiful people have to say? Let me know in the comment section down below. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another. I will talk to you fellow mutants later.